Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. Hello. So great to be here. What an honor. What an honor. Thank you for asking. And John, thank you for inviting Stephen to our big book study. It's great to see everybody here. And you are right, Stephen. My sponsor told me 36 years ago, I can't say no to an AA request. So here I am. That has held me in pretty good stead. My sobriety date is March 3rd, 1984. And you're right, my husband and I, we got snookered into leading a big book study when COVID hit, and we love it. We love it. Actually, first I'll tell you the story about the big book study, and then I'll go back and give you my story. But here's how that started. So when COVID hit, one of my sponsees called me and said, hey, since everybody's on Zoom, I decided she's going to get all her sponsees together. And she said, and we want to do a big book study. That's what she said. We want to do a big book study. And I said, oh, I think that's a great idea for you. And she said, oh, I'm glad you like it. Now, will you lead it? And I was like, this is how AA works, right? So I said, okay. And then I said, why limit it just to your girls? Why don't we open it up to everybody? And then I thought my husband, who's on here, and he sponsors some remarkable men and has taken all of them through the big book. And I thought, you know what, let's invite all of them onto the big book study too. And at the time, we thought COVID would be, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 max. So we thought, oh, this will be cool. We'll just get like our crew together and we'll all just go through the book for a couple of weeks, maybe 4. So that big book study is now going over a year, and we have no plan to stop it. So you're all invited. It's on Fridays. It's on Zoom. Fridays, 1:00 Central Time. And we've been going through the book line by line, word by word, really getting deeply into the miracle and the message in that book. And the sharing is remarkable because it's how to take this message, how to live these principles in our daily lives. And the beauty of this book and of this message and of AA, I mean, there's so many miracles that have come out of just saying yes to having that big book study, and now going over a year doing it. We're in the middle of the 9th step. Took a year to get us to the middle of the 9th step, but what's remarkable is just exactly like this meeting is there's people from around the world, and literally we just love it. We have people from Africa and Sweden and Alaska and Hawaii and sometimes Brazil and all over the United States. And you know what is so beautiful is the message of AA and the message in this big book and how we practice it and whatever we're facing. It's one alcoholic talking to another, and we're all the same. No matter where we're from, no matter what, we're all the same. And I love in AA, just lately, and this might sound crazy, but it's how I am. I love the 8th tradition, right? That we're not professional. What we are is every single one of us has a story to share to help each one of us. Like there's no hierarchy. There's no president that we have to, president of AA or the boss or the chairman, right? It's just us. It's just all of us helping each other. And I think I've been so struck by that more now, more during COVID, I think because I'm on Zoom calls like this and get to hear from people like you how we carry this message, and it's such a beautiful thing. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. Actually, I want to read first from the preface to the big book. One of my favorite things, the very last paragraph of the preface, it says, if you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories, which also we could say pause when hearing anybody's AA story, and think, yes, that happened to me. Or more important, yeah, I felt like that. Like, haven't we all heard stories where it's like, yeah, I felt like that. But most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. And to me, when I read, I get so touched by that, because to me, that's hope. That's hope. Yes, this program can work for me too. And that's what happened to me when I first came to you. I came, and when I would hear people share, and I would think, maybe I would think that happened to me. For sure, I thought, yes, I felt like that too. But what has me stay here is the hope, the message of hope that, yes, this can work for me. And it can work for me to solve my problem with alcohol. But I had a sponsor early on who told me that, honey, to solve your problem with alcohol, stopping drinking is just the beginning. Now you need to change your life and live your life by these 12 principles so that, believe it or not, you can lead a life where a drink isn't even necessary. And I was like, come on, how does anybody lead a life where a drink isn't necessary? Like, I thought AA would be, of course a drink is necessary. I'm just going to white knuckle it with you guys through life and just, plow through, willfully plow through. And boy, am I grateful that AA is the exact opposite of that. The exact opposite. I don't willfully plow through. I completely surrender. And I've gotten to lead a life where a drink isn't necessary. And it's shocking. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. So I started drinking when I was young, like 13, 14, 15 for sure. I grew up in a little town outside of Philadelphia, and I had two brothers and a sister, and our house was the party house. And my parents went to bed every night at 11 o'clock on the dot, and at 11:02, the back door would open and the neighborhood would show up, and we would start partying. And that's just how that rolled. And we were the cool kids on the block. And I had an older brother, and I always wanted to impress him. So if he was having a drink, I'm having a drink. So whatever, I just love being a part of that. And then I went to this hippy-dippy high school called The Alternative, which was not a normal high school at all. It was an experiment in education in the 70s, early 70s. And they took kids they wanted to mix kids from every socioeconomic background and every neighborhood and everything. And you got in by lottery. You got in by lottery, and I got in, and it was only 100 kids, 20 teachers. And why I'm telling you any of that is because I went from the party family to the party high school, like party on. And a big part of that was, big part of the experiment was, instead of like regular classes and this and that, they'd give each kid, we had to get like a work study thing. And well, my work study was at the local rock and roll radio station, which meant I got a backstage pass to any concert coming into town. I got to drink with all the big boys, and I was 15 years old. I didn't even have a driver's license. And I'm partying with the rock stars, literally every week. And I'm thinking, why do grown-ups complain about work? This is fun. Like, I thought this was my work study. I've come to learn that was not work even remotely. It was me partying, sliding by. So that, you hear very frequently in AA, it was fun, and then fun with problems, and then just problems. And for me, that was certainly true. It was fun. It was so fun when I was 15, because I had no responsibility, and I'm playing with the rock stars, so nothing but fun. And then I became the girl on the, just let me not get stuck in the 70s, but let's just say I had fun. So then, so I'm drinking and partying and having my fun. And then college rolls around. I go to college. My first year of college, don't exactly pass because I'm still the little party girl, but college was not like the alternative school. They actually had classes you needed to show up in. They did not have rock stars around. It was all this stuff. And the worst of it was they expected you to like show up for every class and then like take these tests. And so I failed French because I was drunk and hungover. And then I failed something else because it was early in the morning. And I just thought it was the most unreasonable thing ever, this college business. So my family is like, we're not paying for you to just party and fail. They were such a drag. And very long story short, I ended up moving to New York City. Why did I move to New York City? Because I kept getting in car accidents. Because I don't know about you guys, but like drinking, driving as a teenager, it just was not a good combo. And in New York, I could just jump in a cab or take a subway. So I thought I'd eliminate the drinking and driving and getting into car accidents problem, move to New York. And then you could drink a lot. And because bars were open 24 hours. And so I became a little bar freak. And when I moved to New York, all these nightclubs were just opening, all these discos. And then this big disco opened literally the first week I got there, called Studio 54. And I always say I turned my will and my life over to the care of Studio 54. Like, it was the disco. I could drink every night. It was the funnest party in town. And I'm like, who wants to do anything else? Like, but be in the bar and drink, like, especially that bar. And problem was, I was not independently wealthy. I really had no visible means of support. My parents would call, get a job, like hang up. It was like, and a lot of people were saying to me, get yourself together. Like it became obvious that that's when it became fun plus problems. And the problems started becoming, let me think how to say this in a general way. Let me just say, I decided when I first got sober, I thought if I could wake up, if I never have to wake up again and go, who are you? And where are we? I'd be so grateful. So those days, there was a lot of who are you and where are we? And I'm happy to report that since getting sober in AA, I have known exactly where I've woken up and exactly how I'm with. And for this alcohol, that's a miracle. And so that's when it was fun with problems. And then the problems. Then I started getting very physically ill. My kidneys started failing. In order to support myself, I started doing, let's just say, things I'm not proud of. And my life became problems on top of problems. And it talks a lot about in our big book, where we have problems on top of problems that seemingly we cannot solve when we're out there. And that's how it felt. It felt like, towards the end, it felt like, first of all, my kidneys were failing. I was so sick. And I was involved in all kinds of crazy schemes and crazy people and scary things. And I'm 24 in New York City. And it was scary. And my brother, one of my brothers, at the time was dating this girl. He lived in New York too. He lived in New York and he had a real job. He actually worked at Studio 52, but he actually worked there. Like I was selling things, let's say. He actually had a job there. And so he was always saying, get it together. You're going to get me fired. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's just the drunk sister. But anyway, he had a girlfriend, and his girlfriend's family, to me, looked like healthy, functioning people. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but during that time, it always felt like I had my nose pressed up to the window and looking at people's lives like, how do they do that? How do they have real jobs and keep them? How do they have real relationships and keep them? How do they pay the rent every month? It just was like, it just was so far from how I was living. And so her family was like poster child of functioning, I thought. And one day I was actually over at their house, and I overheard her father mention his therapist, that he had a therapist. And I was like, a therapist? And so I was like, that's the secret. That's the secret to success. You get a therapist. And I asked him about it, or I asked her to ask him, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, he did. He gave me his therapist's number. And to me, this was my first day of miracle. And I go to that therapist. And I thought my problem was I needed to figure out how to get a job, and I needed to figure out how to have a boyfriend, and I needed to figure out like all these external things. And this woman saw right through me. She said, I can help you. She said, but until you get sober and start working the 12 steps, nothing that I say or do will make any difference. So she gave me a list of all the meetings in New York City. And she said, I suggest you start going to these. And when you are sober, then I can help you. So here was my first step. I didn't know in that moment that I was powerless over alcohol. I definitely knew my life was unmanaged. Like it was obvious to me and anybody I ever met that my life was unmanageable. But powerless, I thought I had all the power in the world. I thought I just had to figure it out. I thought I just had to figure out who to scam or something. And there's no figuring this out. There's surrender and acceptance. And so I went to prove to her. I was so insulted. Like now I'm so grateful she did that. But in the moment I was insulted. How dare she think I'm an alcoholic? And how dare she think I need a program, right? I'm going to pay her to get me well. I don't need anything else. And I was so blind to a miracle. So I go to prove to her that I could stop drinking all by myself. I just never wanted to. I could stop drinking. I just never tried. She's like, okay, go try exactly as it says in her book. Try some drinking and then try to put it down. I'm like, okay. So I tried some drinking and tried to put it down. I could not put it down. I couldn't put it down because I kept having feelings. Like, and what do you do when you have a feeling? You have a drink, right? You have a feeling. Where's the vodka? Where's the wine? Oh my gosh. And then on top of having feelings where you obviously need a drink, go out with friends. Well, what do you do when you go out with friends? You have to have a margarita. Like, you can't not have a margarita, obviously. And so on it went. And then I'd show up at her office and she'd say, did you not drink? And I was like, yes. Well, I'd say I didn't get drunk, which was a lie, of course. And she'd say, okay, how about you come back on Thursday and try between now and Thursday not to drink? And so long story short, I kept trying and I kept trying and I kept trying. And I kept thinking I was not drinking, but I kept drinking. And then finally, this went on January, February, and I kept trying to not drink. I kept trying to white knuckle it. And then finally on March 3rd, I showed up in her office drunk, as we tend to do. Even though I didn't want to be drunk, even though I made a commitment not to drink, even though she told me I had a problem with alcohol, and I was like, no, I don't. Here I am, drunk, again and again and again. But here I am drunk, March 3rd, 1984, and she just looked at me. She's like, why don't you just go try those meetings? Just go try. And I finally admitted to my innermost self in that moment that I can't do this by myself. I've been trying for months and I couldn't. And I knew I couldn't. I knew it. But I didn't think AA could help. That's for sure. And because I knew nothing about it. So I already decided you can't help. And then I show up at my first meeting at on March 3rd. And this is the craziest thing. It was a round robin topic meeting, which that format, for those of you who are new, is round robin. So it's people sit in a circle and then everybody shares in the circle. And the topic was working in sobriety, which was something I knew nothing about. And I, of course, was late to the meeting because I couldn't figure out what black outfit to wear. And so I was sitting on the outside of the circle. And when they stood up to say the prayer and they held hands, the girl that I was sitting directly behind turned out to be somebody that I knew from the bars. And the last time I had seen her, she was face down in her own vomit, which was not unusual for my crew. And we had heard the terrible news that she was sent to a rehab. And in the bar, we thought that meant she died, basically. We were like, oh, poor thing, she can't drink. Oh, my God, poor thing. And there she was, happy, joyous, and free. And there I was, day one. And I couldn't believe she was there. And she said, come with me to the coffee shop. I'll tell you how this thing works. So if you're new, welcome, first of all, to AA. And once this COVID thing's over, which luckily feels like meetings are starting to open up in different parts of the world. And if somebody invites you to the coffee shop, just go. That meeting after the meeting is so precious, And that night in the coffee shop, her and a bunch of people, she's like, this is Lisa. It's our first day. It's her first meeting. So you know what we did, right? We gather around. So all the AAs gathered around and told me what to do. And I do it to this day. I do that to this day. Here's what they told me. First, get on your knees and ask God to keep you sober. Whether you believe in God or not, whether you have a concept of God or not, just get on your knees and ask him to keep you sober in the morning. At the end of the day, thank him for keeping you sober, if you stayed sober. Find a home group and go to meetings every single day and do not drink and do not drug between those meetings. And if 24 hours is too long to not drink and not drug between meetings, go to 2 meetings a day and do not drink and do not drug between those meetings. And she told me, try to get a commitment at each meeting. Bring the cookies, make the coffee, be the greeter. Get a job in each meeting. And I've done that. I've done that 37 years now. And So I will tell you, that was the beginning of my journey. And it's been such a gift. It's bigger than a gift. It's so many miracles have happened since that moment. So many miracles for me, and I'm sure for all of you. My husband had a sponsor for many, many years named Clint H. You guys, probably a lot of you knew Clint H. And he used to lead this big book study every year in Los Angeles. And Clint used to say, what did he say? He used to say, recognize the miracles. Recognize the miracles. Because so frequently I'll run through my day so quickly and I won't pause and realize the miracles that are happening. So, so many miracles. So as I said, let's just say I came in unemployable. Let's just call it what it was, right? Did I say that in the coffee shop, they tell me, get a sponsor. You have to get a sponsor. So I get this sponsor and she tells me that I need to get like an honest job. I have to start being self-supporting through my own contributions. And I couldn't keep going to the bar and selling things and doing what I was doing. And I was like, oh my goodness, am I gonna what? And that's when she said, I said, but if I don't drink, can I? And she's like, no, just not drinking is just the beginning. You have to start leading an honest, principled life, these 12 principles. And so I thank God there was a beautiful man in my home group, my brand new home group in New York called his name is Larry. And I guess I was whining that this mean sponsor was making me get a legal job. And he said, did you ever waitress? And I was like, no. And he's like, stop by this restaurant tomorrow. I manage it. And I think we have a job for you. And I was like, miracle number one. And I ended up working at that restaurant for 8 years. I could cry. For 8 years. And again, just like I thought our big book study would be a few weeks, I thought I'd work there, a week or two tops till I found some fabulous food job that somebody needed a drunk nutcase to do, I suppose, right? So, but I'll tell you what that job gave me. Oh my God, so many miracles. First of all, I got so much self-esteem. I used to carry these trays filled with food and I thought I feel like the Statue of Liberty, like freedom, because I'm not drinking. And I am supporting myself and I don't have to do all that crazy stuff I used to do. I just felt so much self-esteem of being self-supporting by my own contributions, which is our 7th tradition for the meetings. But I had a sponsor to tell me to practice those traditions and steps in my life. And because of that job, I realized I had my days free. And through the encouragement of my sponsor and others, actually, truly through meditation, there was this stirring in my heart that I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go to college and do it right and not drink away all the education. I actually honestly wanted an education, not just to get drunk. And so I was able to go back to school in sobriety, back to college. And then I ended up getting this teeny weeny little apartment in New York because it was all I could afford on that waitress job. And that apartment, I mean, I scoured the city. I looked at thousands of apartments and I couldn't afford anything except this teeny weeny little closet of a space on the first floor on 79th Street between 1st and York. And if anybody knows New York City AA, that apartment was exactly across the street from the 79th Street workshop, which has 50 meetings a week. And that my apartment was so teeny weeny. I was so claustrophobic, but I had a giant window. And from that window, I could see who's walking into the workshop and who's going to be the speaker and who's opening the door and who's doing service and who's the greeter. So I spent all day at the 79th Street workshop. That became my living room. And I was 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings a day because God, the miracle, I thought poor me. I can only afford this teeny little shoebox of apartment. No, it was the hand of God saying, honey, we're going to put you right across the street from that AA meeting place so you get sober and stay sober. And oh my gosh, that workshop, that place, it grew me up. I could cry. There were so many AA giants in those meetings that grew me up. And so I went back to college, and I'd even sit in the back of that workshop with my textbooks, like just anything I was going through, there was somebody in that group who could walk me through it. And having the job at the restaurant while I was doing that, there was, Larry, who managed it, was sober, and he knew I was sober. And all of a sudden, there were some people who maybe were drunk, and then they ended up coming to meetings with us, and we ended up having a big fellowship in that restaurant, which was a beautiful thing. So I ended up graduating school, and actually, let me back up, because I want to tell you a little bit about my sponsor, Peggy. And Peggy is, some of you might know her, Peggy B. She started a meeting in New York City called the Atlantic Group. And she started it because she wanted to make sure that drunks like me and you were getting the message of AA. We're getting what's in this book. And Peggy always had little pithy sayings. So whenever I'd call her upset or angry, she'd say, honey, hit him with a prayer instead of a chair. Or when I started dating and I would get my heart broken, she'd say, sweetie, rejection is God's protection. She's always telling me that. And she grew me up. And the miracle of all of that is I get to live this AA sober life. And after I graduated college, actually through a sponsee, let me just say, everything good in my life has come through AA. And as the result of being a very, very active member of AA, always an active member in this fellowship. And so I graduate, and I had a job. Long story short, one of my sponsees recommended me for this job, this corporate job, which I was like, really? You think I could do that? And she was like, you could definitely do that. I was like, do you think? And again, the hand of AA. So I go on the interview. I end up getting this job, which was such a miracle. And that kind of gave me this career. And that's been unbelievable, actually. And but the thing about it is, I know I keep talking about work and external things. I hope you're hearing that the only reason any of that stuff started working was because I did the inner work. I prayed every single day. I didn't drink every single day. I had a sponsor and sponsees and commitments at every meeting I went to. And I just tried to put as much as I could into AA as I could. And seemingly doing that, focusing on my program, walking through these steps, going through this big book with Peggy, and then taking my sponsees through this book, somehow the rest of life started working out. Like a sponsee refers me to a job. Oh my goodness. And but I don't want to get the cart before the horse, right? It's like you hear a lot, if we focus on AA. Actually, I have a little quote up here. The more I rely on my higher power, the more reliable my higher power becomes. And then when I was 15 years sober, I met Mr. Right, literally Mr. Right. And see, it's so funny because just when I was a week sober, I thought if I could just get a job, I could just get a boyfriend, I would just get this, just get that, all these stuff I wanted, right? And God was so gracious to me. It was like, you are not ready. You need to grow up. You need to have this program. You need to find out who you are. You need to find out what God's will is for you. And pray for the power to carry that out. And I am so grateful that I met Rick when I was 15 years sober and not a year sober or 2 years sober, because it would have been a very different story. But by the time we met, and we started dating and fell in love. And I'll tell you, my sponsor, so I know there's a lot of women on here who identify with this. So I meet him, I'm like, oh, I just think he's awesome and still think he's awesome. We're married 25 years now. But when I met him, so I have to run it by Peggy, right? I'm like, Peggy, I met a guy who just, and here's Peggy. Just, who's his sponsor? What's his home group? What step is he on? What are his AA commitments? I was like, unlike my mother, who's like, what's he do? Like the normal questions, right? No, my sponsor wants to know where he stands in AA. And I love that about her because she knew if he had that, a sponsor, a home group, commitments, working the steps, I'd be okay. Right? But without that, she's like, no. So Rick and I ended, again, long story, we ended up moving from New York to LA. Oh, actually, I should tell a little bit about that because that's another AA miracle. So you've heard my story, right? I was a maniac in the bar, then I'm the waitress, and I go to school. This company that I was working for, they relocated me from New York to LA to run the LA office. Can you imagine? Only because I'm sober, only because of AA. So we move out there and Peggy tells Rick that he should go and find Clint. And he did. And see, we both cried. And I will tell you, when we got married, we had Peggy and Clint at the wedding. And then we had my darling, precious Vincent. Maybe some of you knew Vincent McConnell. Oh, he was a very active member of AA in New York City, sober 50 years when he passed. He just passed 2 years ago, but he was a judge and he came out to LA to marry us. And he has actually married so many AA couples. Vincent was a treasure of this fellowship and this program. So anyways, so the steps, let me get into a couple of the steps. So let me tell you about some 9-step events because they became really vital. And I'll tell you one, I just told it the other day, I guess because we're in 8 and 9, it's become remembering a lot of these. But one of them was, I'm thinking, which miracle should I tell you? Which AA miracle? Let me tell you this one. When Peggy had me sit down and do my 8th step, when we got to the financial amends, we wrote down everybody I owed money to. And one of them was actually an old drug dealer. And I did not want to open that door. I'm sober. I don't want to know them. I don't want to know all drug dealers, but I owed them a lot of money. And she was like, you have to pay that. Because you need to we have to be clean. We have to clean it all up. And so I took this amount of money and I put it in an envelope and I wrote him a letter, that I owed him this money, that I'm in a program now and I'm sober, but please do not contact me. But if he ever wants to be sober or know about AA, then I will always take his call. But if it's about the shenanigans, drug dealing from the past, I want no part of it. And I mailed that letter. 11 years later, the phone rang and it was him. And he was in a rehab. And could he talk to me because I was the only one he knew that was in AA. And I ended up taking him to some meetings and introducing him to some people. And as far as I know, he's sober today. So it's like we never know where our 9 steps are going to lead. We have no idea. It's such a gift. It's such a blessing. And another 9 step I made was there was a store that I had acquired some merchandise that hadn't been paid for. And again, Peggy's like, let's make a list. How much do we owe? And so I went to that store, and it says in our big book, in our 9th step, that we pray, we ask God to walk with us, and that we're willing, even if we're going to get arrested, right? And I thought I'd be arrested for that because I had to admit that I had acquired all this merchandise that hadn't been paid for. And I went to that store, and it was a big, busy department store in New York City. And the way the credit kind of thing worked, it was almost like a bank with this thick plastic thing, right, where you slide your money under and you have to scream to the people. And I'm like, I owe this money, right? I'm like screaming into the thing. And they were like, what's your account? I'm like, I don't have an account. I owe this money. And I thought, I can't scream a 9-step event through this plastic thing. And behind me, I hear, Lisa. And it turns out to be Susie from my home group, another AA miracle, in this long line of people waiting to pay. She was in it. I'm like, Susie, I'm in the middle of a 9th step. I don't know what to do. And she was an angel from God. She's like, ask for the manager. I was like, oh, perfect. So I'm like, can I speak to the manager? And they were like, okay. And she was like, I'll stay with you, because I thought if once I admit this to the manager, they'll just arrest me. I'm like admitting that I stole all this stuff. So she stayed with me. And then the manager comes out, and I explain that I got this merchandise and I need to pay. And then I'm in a program now that we make amends. We make amends for harms we've done in the past. And I owed them this money, and I want to give her the money. And I put it in her hand, the manager's hand. And she turned to me and she said, I shall cry. She said, as far as I'm concerned, you're forgiven. She said, this is between you and God. This is between you and God. You are forgiven. She said, I don't want your money. She said, nobody's ever come here and tried to give us money. And I was shocked, and I was grateful. And and Susie was right there. We were like, thank you. And I realized that all those years I was taking the merchandise, I was trying to fill the hole, right? Get the shoes, I'll feel better. Get the clothes, I'll feel better. Nothing fills the hole but God. And it wasn't until I went to make that amend and got forgiven, because I want to be right with God, that I finally filled that hole. And then, of course, I told Peggy what happened right away. And she was like, well, call that lady right back and ask her what charity that store supports, because you have to give that money to that charity. Peggy, okay. So I did. And it was a beautiful thing. It really was. So then Rick and I are living in LA, and he's making 9-step amends just like that. And we ended up having a daughter who is now 21 years old, which is amazing. And she grew up in an AA sober house. And our daughter has never seen either one of us drunk. Her aunts and uncles are our sponsees and our sponsors. And she looks at Peggy as like her other grandma. And there's just a lot of love. There's just a lot of love and a lot of hope. And if you're new or just coming back to AA, please stay close and stay active. Stay active. I was taught to stay in the middle of this thing, and I'll tell you, it's this program can work for you. I know this program can work for you. If it can work for me, it can work for you. And Peggy always tells me my job is to enlarge my spiritual life, to have a relationship with my higher power, and to constantly be in a relationship with that higher power to expand it. And the way I see God is through you guys. The way I see God is when I see a newcomer walk in and suddenly put their life together and see the miracles I just described to you in my life. When I see it in your life, I know there's a God. I know there's a God. And we're all a part of it. Like I said, like there's no chairman or boss you have to please. We all have this message and we all help each other. That's the beauty of AA. It's the miracle of AA. And I'm beyond grateful to be a part of it. And I think that's enough from me, right? I think my time is up. So thank you, Stephen.